All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Full Circle, episode technically 26, but really it is 25. This week, of course, we are talking about the Knockout 1 recap as well as the Knockout 2 predictions. And I'm joined by Sad Shiba, who is turned into a figure, Dio, and T1G. How are you guys doing?
Good man.
Doing all
I'm
right. Doing all right.
chilling. Yeah, it's a gorgeous Friday afternoon as we head into Labor Day weekend, and there's been very much Osu played, and so that's been it's been fun.
I low key forgot about Full Circle, so I have a plate of spaghetti bolognese in front of me that I am going to
Nice.
try
Yo,
and stealthily eat as we go through the episode when I'm not talking,
that
and
kind of
listen
goes
while I'm
off
eating my
though.
spaghetti.
Like
I mean,
bolognese is so good. Like thumbs up
it's
for that.
it's pretty good. It's leftovers too, so it's
Well,
still good.
we'll see how stealthily you can eat your bolognese. We do have two interviews for you guys today. First, we're going to have Vespirit on, and then at the end, we are going to have Boshi. So, without further ado, we welcome Vespirit to the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Greatly appreciated. How's everything going? How's life?
Hey, thanks for having me. Everything's going well. How about you guys?
It's going well for us. So, why don't we talk about Corsace? You guys were up against one of the best teams in the tournament last weekend, with the format having three different pools, two sets, best of seven. How does that kind of format affect your mindset going into a match? And did you guys have to do anything differently in terms of prep, in terms of going through the match?
Well, the size of the pool is definitely the main thing. Like, we spent, instead of just the normal one practice lobby, we actually had two. So we split it up in that way. So I guess in that case, we have like more practice, which is helpful. But also, starting like a lot of the maps didn't have as much time to play them through, so we had to spread out the practice a bit.
Yeah. Do you find it's harder to kind of motivate yourself to practice with such a big pool? How do you find the balance, between trying to practice every map to make sure you at least know it versus grinding a map a few times to make sure you're really comfortable in it?
Well, there's definitely a couple maps that are like I really have to sink a lot of plays into. Like, I remember one of the no mod fours, I believe the third pool for that particular pool was like took me like a long time to get it down. So I guess I just like play everything once in the practice lobbies that my team hosted, and then from there we choose which maps I guess each of us should play a lot versus play only a little bit. And yeah, it's
Yeah. Seems like you guys have it figured out. Do you have any predictions for the last weekend of Bowman? Who do you think is taking it all?
to be honest, I have no idea. Like, I actually have to like look at what's been happening because usually, like, I'm in a lot of tournaments right now, so I'm like kind of spreading out my, I guess, focus. But I have to look at it. Um,
That's
the
that's
team I
fair.
played against was definitely like crazy. Like, we did not stand a chance. So if they're
Huh.
still in, I'd give it to them.
Yeah, they're strong contenders for sure. But so you've been playing a ton of tournaments with this group for a while now. Every tournament you've got your squad of Canadian players. And something I very rarely hear people talk about is team synergy. Do you think team synergy really makes a difference in OSU, or is it more about the individual players?
I think it totally does. Like, when I'm playing, like, we got the Canadian squad going for a lot of these like 4v4 teams of eight tournaments, and it's a lot more of a chill atmosphere, I guess. Like, I don't really get nervous when I'm playing with this team because I don't feel like I have that pressure. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna. I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything would probably be fine anyway. But if I don't perform, like, it's more I feel bad for like the team rather than um myself, I guess. So in that
Yeah.
case, it's really helpful to just have like a really chill group of people. who aren't gonna like we're just playing for fun, really. So
No, exactly. It's nice not to have that kind of added stress. Do you find that you get a little bit more nervous if you're playing with players that you're not as familiar with?
yeah, definitely. Like if I get like invited to a team with a bunch of people that I don't know, I feel like I gotta like perform. Like that's like, oh shit, like there's pressure now, you know. But when I'm playing with, I guess the Canadians especially, but there's other people
Mm,
too. When I'm
yeah.
playing with them, it's a lot more chill.
Now, on your team, you've got some Canadian players who have been around playing tournaments for a long time, some veterans, and you've got some newcomers as well. There have been some new faces in the Canadian tournament scene
Hmm.
over the past year. Are there any, especially with OWC around the corner, are there any new Canadian players that the viewers should be looking out for that you think are improving really quickly and we could expect to look really solid in the future?
Oh, for OWC specifically, there's I think it's gonna be an interesting tryout. There's a lot of good Canadian players,
Yeah.
even like old ones coming back and new ones. So I think in particular, I'd be scared of uh, TS Fury, for example, is one
Okay.
that's a new one that's been on the come up
Yeah.
recently. Um, and as well as like even some old players coming back, like Wooful, uh, used to be really prominent, and I think he's back in shape as well as Stu
Stu,
for old players coming
man,
back.
Newfoundland.
haven't seen Stu in so long.
Yeah,
Welcome
he's
back,
back in
Stu.
shape.
Well, that is pretty much going to be it. Was there anything else you wanted to say to the viewers?
For me, I think that's it mostly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We greatly appreciate you guys joining. I don't know if you wanted to shout out if you stream or you wanted to shout out your Twitter or anything.
Well, I don't stream too often, but I'm Vespirit pretty much everywhere. So Twitch
There you go.
Vespirit. Yeah.
Go follow Vesperid on Twitch.
Go
With that,
right now.
right
Go
now.
right
Yep.
now. Go right
Forget
now.
forget full circle. Go follow Vesperid.
Yeah,
It's more
right
Run,
important.
now.
don't walk.
You should follow Vespirit now.
But yeah, thank you again, seriously, for coming on. We really do appreciate it. It's always nice to get some insight and always look forward to seeing what the Canadian players have in the future. There it is, YouTube channel and Twitter on the screen there. Go follow and subscribe. Thank you, Vesprit. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
And
having me,
next,
guys.
no worries. You take care.
You too.
Well, as promised, we have got some knockout one matchup discussions. And to be quite honest, there isn't a ton to talk about. There were a lot of very one-sided matchups this week. So we'll talk about a couple of matchups, and then we can maybe talk about the closeness of the matchups later on. But let's start with maybe one of the closer matchups, LaFish and Roundtable HK. It was 2-0, but I think Roundtable was the only team to take 2 points off of their opponent in a set. I think otherwise all the matches were 2-0 or 2-1. I mean, Shiva, talk to me about this match. What happened here?
Okay. So I had the privilege of casting this. This being the closest match in the entire weekend was pretty cool, despite it not being that close. But I think Roundtable Hong Kong. I mean, of course, you still have that insane trio of like Suwagi and MCY who are world class players. So this team was always going to be like a decent threat. I think they definitely outperformed teams like all G8 Bros on this top 8 as well. So I think still though, despite putting up a good fight against the Fish, I think just the Fish overall were really strong. Rectagon and Shige especially. They played insanely well this match, played
Yeah.
multiple maps through and through. Rectagon in particular, like completely shredded on the Hard Rock. Hard Rock 2 and Hard Rock 1 consecutive FCs. Absolutely crazy. Hard Rock 1 kind of finishing it off. Round 2 Hong Kong was super, super close to securing that TB on Pool C, which I was really hoping for because we didn't ever get to see the TB, which made me really sad because it was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Suwagi and MCY were so insane, and Shirohayuki was like a great trio. Those three were like very common denominators, and you often had F2X fill in for more of the mechanics heavy picks to fight Winterlife and Vudchi in particular. But overall, like it was just a general overperformance from if it wasn't Rectagon, it was Shige. Like every time, it was always one of those two who were the big MVPs for the fish. But it was still a good fight. I think Suwagi in particular made like a huge fight, getting multiple like insane combos, insane lobby scores overall, and yeah, they made a good effort, but the fish were too strong.
There's something kind of funny about this match that I don't know if people really necessarily would have noticed. So last year in OWC, the United States played Hong Kong in the quarterfinals, right? And the first map of that match was Nomad 2, and Hong Kong won it on what I think was a break point. And then in this match, the Roundtable Hong Kong wins the first map of the second set on a break point on Nomad 2. So apparently Hong Kong is just like sneaky good at Nomad 2s against these teams. And like Rectagon and Boshi were both on that USA team in OWC last year. I just thought that was kind of a funny little coincidence to see that happen again. Like if I had a nickel for every time this happened, blah blah blah, it would it's only 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Yeah, I don't know. I found that kind of funny, especially considering how strong the Fish's like tapping roster is. So that was the little thing I took away from that. I was like, oh, that's a kind of funny little parallel to what happened in OWC last year.
Also, considering that they're two very, very different types of Nomad 2s, like the Nomad 2s in OWC last year were still mostly like raw stamina meta, kind of flow aimy, but not super difficult on the flow aim. A lot of like 200 BPM plus stuff. Meta for Nomad 2s here is more aim control, kind of wacky streams. And so even if it happened twice, it's still on 2 different types of map anyway on the Nomad 2, which I think makes it even more funny of a coincidence, if anything, just because no matter the type of Nomad 2, it's still happening apparently when Hong Kong faces the United States. So a little funny.
Yeah, that was 200 BPM It's Winter map in OWC, and this was a 200 BPM half slash map, or excuse me, 185 BPM half slash map in this. So yeah, very, very, very different, but a little funny coincidence.
Yeah, I mean they played the 2 different pools as well, right? Pool B and Pool C. And Roundtable HK was a little bit closer on Pool C, but of course fell a map short of taking it to tiebreaker. I mean, let's say hypothetically, right? They had been able to find another point somewhere. Do they have the edge on the tiebreaker? Could they have just gone for 2 Pool Cs and pulled off an upset?
You can't do that, right?
You cannot. You can only
You
play
can't
each
do
pool
that
once.
anyway. Yeah,
No,
like it would
okay,
have just been
I
it would have just been the remaining. It would have just been Pool A in set 3 if it had gone that far, and I don't think that Pool A probably would have favored them all that much necessarily.
No.
Well, that would have been an
That's
interesting
that's
one.
a question because they won the
That would have
Nomad
been
2
an
and they won the
interesting one,
DT4,
actually.
right?
They did.
So
Yeah.
it's double aim control, which is kind of raises an interesting question. The answer is still probably not, but like
Probably, but
I think
maybe
it's
they have a
it's
better
doable.
chance.
Maybe doable.
I would have just
You
liked
never
to
know.
have seen like the tiebreaker played at least once out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what? Well, it was 10 matches. Was it 10 matches played? Because there were 2
Yeah.
forfeits. And like you said, literally nothing closer than a single 4-2. But yeah, it would have been cool to see. Because I think I had talked about with some people before this match started that this was probably on paper the closest match that we kind of expected to see. And it technically lived up to the billing. By how much of a margin is a different matter, but it technically lived up to that. So that was kind of cool.
10 matches, 20 sets, closest set 4-2, 0 tiebreakers.
Yeah,
Out of 20 different
So much
sets.
pain.
Yeah,
so much pain.
we'll talk
bit of
about that in a little
stomping
bit.
going on
I
here.
think
No
we're talking about
waking
that in a little
shadows,
bit because
dispatch.
yeah.
Yeah, I
it's
think
a little sad.
another minor
Little
detail I
bit.
wanted to add is how well Shige in particular played on the speedy mechanics heavy maps. I think I don't know if you
Mhm.
feel free to disagree with me because I don't have too much experience casting with Shige, but if I remember correctly, he's very much more of a hidden comfort and aim control player. I don't really remember him kind of being as known as a super high BPM mechanics player, and him performing extremely well, top scoring the no mod 3, I believe on the first pool. I don't remember which number it was. I think it was B.
Pool B, yeah.
Yeah, which was extremely high BPM mechanics and getting the highest score on that lobby, and on top of that, getting a really high score on the DT2, 1.1 million, evening it out with Rectagon is really impressive, especially people considering that people probably know Shige more as an aim control flow aim player, but being really good on the speed was something I didn't expect, but I'm super happy to see.
New gens don't know this, but he was a speed player before there were speed players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Shige
Okay,
is
yeah.
the OG speed player.
just
Like
old.
I'm
I'm
talking
just too
about
young.
I'm talking about like 2014, 2015 maps when you were playing like AR8 plus DT Toho stuff that was like, 250 BPM or whatever. That like if you look through those maps, you see so many Shige scores, it's nuts. But if you're a newer player, you wouldn't necessarily be as familiar with that skill set of his because now it's like you said, it's a lot about him being like this unbelievable hidden flow aim player, which he displayed in this match as well. And in both of their matches this weekend, actually, his flow aim was just like unbelievably good. But yeah, he used to be a really, really good tapping mechanics player. It's not something he's known for anymore, but it's definitely something that's still in his wheelhouse.
I mean,
still
I'd
find
argue he still is.
Yeah.
What was it? The Nomad 3 in Pool B. He has a full combo with Hidden in solo. 2013 1x100 Freedom Dive. I don't know, 10 years ago. Shige is still gapping the entire Nomad leaderboard on that map. There's still not a double S.
Dude, pretty good. Dude
first
is pretty
Hard Rock
good.
FC on Freedom Dive. First Hidden Hard Rock FC on Freedom Dive. Shige's Hidden Hard Rock score on Everything Will Freeze from goddamn 1604 is still gapping everyone on the leaderboard for Hidden Hard Rock right now. I don't know, man. Like, maybe your
people forget about
300
his tapping a little
speed.
bit.
Yeah, maybe your 300
Not
BPM
quite the
speed.
300 BPM.
I mean,
he's not very good at that. But like,
still
he's
tournament
not setting.
tournament
He's not
speed?
out.
No way.
He's not out there setting like those modern speed DT scores like you see people doing for 1200 PP every day nowadays. But that's not to say he can't play tapping stuff.
Also, first Taeyang remote control DTFC, by the way, even though it's AR 10.5.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's so funny.
Somehow.
It's so funny how like
I
the
don't know.
perception of his skill set has changed over the years.
Even though
he's gone through so many phases, and he's actually just I don't know, the goat.
I still find it really impressive that he played well enough to outshine players like Window Life and Wachi, who are more the players that we would expect to perform really well on these maps.
Oh, Shiba's the new gen of us here, isn't he?
What the fuck, dude?
I do not expect Woodchi to do better than
I don't expect Woodchi or Window Life to outperform Shige, but if you were around, in like 2018,
back in my day,
right? Like 2018,
back in literally today, bro. He's still good.
Watching like Rubber Conquest literally win every tournament, and Shige would just come in and FC every map he played. Like, you have no idea. He was unbelievable.
This guy has 15 900 PP plays. One of them is Shinbatsu with Hidden. Like, I don't know what you're talking about with the no speed.
Anyway,
let me grab some stats real quick.
I'm just
listen,
I'm just stupid. It's fine.
We're good with the stats. Like, I've only been around since like 2020, but you see the VODs, you see the clips. I think it is easy to forget because what was it, since like his kind of break and then the return, he has not played a lot of speed, but obviously the ability is still there. But to steer us back to the match, I think, I mean, even just on paper, while you did expect this to be one of the closer matchups, LaFish just has a lot more depth to them. And while Roundtable has a roster that have been playing together for so long and they are very consistent, they don't quite have that same skill cap across all of their players, where it feels like, on LaFish, pretty much anyone on that roster has a very high skill cap, whereas when you look at Roundtable, it's more so Suwagi and MCY4 that you're looking to as kind of the main two carries there. So not unexpected, but that was our closest mass. We did also have Flipinski and all GA pros first winning 4-1 on Pool B and then 4-0 on Pool C. This one, not quite as close, but I guess out of the other matches, one of the, you could say it was closer-ish, maybe.
I
Do you
yeah.
back
I
me up a
mean,
little?
we're really reaching here, aren't
We're
we?
really
right
reaching.
now?
No,
Yeah, this
this
is a
was
tough one.
this was really one-sided. I think
It was not close.
me and Dio were insanely surprised that
Mhm.
they managed to win the no mod 4.
Yeah.
But
I
550k, like
yeah.
they didn't just win it, like they kind of
Yeah,
stomped that, but also
they kind of smacked it. And in fairness, like Milk was kind of the big overperformer for OG8 Bros. So the maps that were close were kind of all down to Milk, to be honest.
did Nahus like what happened here on this
Yeah, I
map?
don't know.
He got
I don't think
108k
it
with
really
56
mattered.
misses. It didn't
Yeah.
matter, but like, what was he doing?
Not quite
Good
sure.
question.
Okay.
Flipinski did not have Taquito because Taquito's Sunday morning match, and
Mhm.
B, all G8 Bros did not have either Crystal or Joseph Joestar.
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah, that
doomed.
too. I
It's
forgot
when
about that.
doomed.
Flipinski started picking speed into them, they just got absolutely gapped in every possible way. Yeah, it was not close at all. There was
Ye-
there was the one map on the Nomad 4, and then every other map is like million-point difference, 500k, 850k, 250k on the Nomad 2 in the second set, but then 1.2 million. Yeah, it was not very close.
The real
yeah.
question here then
I'm
kind of just becomes like exactly how good is Flapinski, because we've only seen them in like the one match, because their other one they won via forfeit. So like they played one match against a team that was hopelessly overmatched against them. We know they're really good, but it's like you don't get a lot out of a match that's 4-1-4-0.
No, I mean, I do think, of course, they're a very good team. I think they were seeded
I mean, they're seeded
4th.
one.
Yeah, they're the first seed, and even just looking at that roster on paper is so stacked. And so it's hard to say, oh, we haven't seen them. They. I think we're gonna see some teams at least put up a fight, but I would still say they're the favorites going into the last knockout stage. I'll be honest though, I was looking at the matches and I felt kind of obligated to find a second match to recap just because that's how we've always done it. But it really wasn't that interesting. I don't think I have anything else to add. Feel free to interrupt me if you guys don't either. But
There's
My
it
not
was
a lot to talk
one-sided.
about. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
There's
there's
real.
been a
not a
lot
lot
to it,
going on
so
here. Yeah,
Listen, my
let's.
disappointment was immeasurable, and my
yeah,
weekend was
Yeah.
ruined.
your entire weekend was ruined. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can instead talk a little bit about the Flipinski FF. They had not enough players, and
Or the
Titan
Titan
Hollow.
Hollow
that's
FF.
Titan Hollow
or
FF.
Titan Hollow. Titan Hollow. Yep, that's a big one though. This is a team that again, you would expect to be one of the top teams in the tournament. So, initially I was expecting them to be the team competing against Flipinski for that kind of grand final spot. But now with them out of the tournament, it is going to have to be potentially one of the other teams to step up. And big loss for the tournament. It's a very exciting team gone, but you have to have all your players ready. So
They put together a roster that was always going to have this problem. Like
yeah,
Whitecat is
the
just
time zones.
notoriously flaky,
Mhm.
and Emrek is in a terrible time zone and has a terrible sleep schedule in a terrible time zone. So they kind of put themselves at risk to have this happen when they constructed this roster. I don't want to be rude, but I have literally zero sympathy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're getting into putting Whitecat and Emrek on a team where you only have 6 players and you need 4. Sorry, you know what you're getting into. You need 100% guarantee that the other 4 will be available 24/7, or this is going to end up happening.
And basically it was Emrek asleep, Whitecat was supposed to be there and was not, and Kriller was away for like 30 minutes beforehand, so they had to FF. Basically the Tom Scott thing. Like, I'm in Weldon Spring, I'm in Gavel, I am in the abandoned city of Pripyat, I
I'm in
am
Yavle.
inside one of the engine down oil tanks, I'm off to the Arctic for 3 weeks, I am not inside a fusion reactor,
I'm
in
about to
Hull,
cross a
I'm in
road.
Disney World, I'm in an airplane bathroom, right?
Okay.
Like, just every member is off somewhere, and unfortunately, if you're missing 3, you cannot play because it's that you're not allowed to 3v4. So, yeah,
Now,
it'd be like that.
to be fair, if you're in Disney World, fair enough, right? I mean, I wouldn't be playing playing circles if I'm in Disney World. But yeah, it is obviously on them. As much as it sucks to not have them in the tournament anymore because they would have made for some good matches. It is your own responsibility to make sure your team is available for the matches. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anything else to add there.
I
Which
mean,
brings us. Oh,
oh
yeah, go ahead,
no, go
Shiba.
on. It's fine. I was literally just gonna be like, I mean, look, if if we knew Whitecat wasn't gonna make it, do you think Emmerich would have been willing to stay up till outrageous times to play?
I think he's done it before, but I'm not
Because
sure
he's
if he
I
would
think
yeah.
be willing to in this
I think
case.
if Emmerich knew, he probably would have been motivated enough
Mhm.
to play because he is the kind of
Probably.
player to recently
Yeah.
be really passionate about tournaments. I don't think he has
His
he hasn't got the attitude that he had like a few years ago. Now he cares a lot more about it. And it's
Mhm.
shown in the last year. I think he probably would have been willing to stay
Yeah.
up if Whitecat didn't suddenly be like, sorry guys, I have to go now.
Yeah, and I feel
Uh,
like he's done it before
yeah.
for last Corsace Open, no? When they had the White Cat,
Grand
Zudinator,
finals,
Emmerich
bracket
team
reset.
grand finals where Emmerich was playing at like 3 in the morning.
he's got
You
a
know,
super messed up
there's
time sleep schedule. I don't know anymore when
I
he
mean,
sleeps and when he gets up, but I don't know if anybody does.
that's what you get for living in Australia.
UTC
Yeah.
minus or UTC plus 10 moments
Yep.
or
Yeah.
plus 11 maybe. I
Yeah.
forget where he's
So
from.
yeah, let's move on to kind of the elephant in the room, I guess, which is the format. So, of course, with the new format being introduced, it was 2 sets, best of 7. Of course, 3 different pools. I can't pick the same pool twice. And it's an interesting idea, but as it turns out, as we kind of previously discussed, most of the matches ended up being, well, actually, every single match ended up being incredibly one-sided. Every single set was 2-0, and we had no tiebreakers. And I know, Shiba, when I was talking to you yesterday, you mentioned coming into the tournament that you thought, oh, thank you for the raid, greatly appreciated. But Shiba, you were mentioning that you thought this kind of new format would actually make the matches a lot closer, which I mean, I had the exact same thought coming into the tournament, and obviously it didn't work out that way. But I mean, what gave you that idea coming to the tournament, right? Like, what's the thought process there? Because I followed the exact same logic.
I mean, first of all, like it's first to 4, and then after that you get a full reset onto the next pool. On top of that, you get time to like take a break. So if the teams are actually relatively in an even closer state, even if it's like a little bit one-sided, the second pool could give that other team an advantage because it's the loser of the first set who picks the next. Sorry, you might hear a motorbike coming by if you didn't show, but yeah, I was honestly thinking this format being a lot closer. I honestly just think the sheer difference of the teams and how insanely strong the top 8 are. I was really hoping for it to be closer, and I think in another tournament with maybe a more balanced teams on a bigger spectrum, we could maybe have seen a lot more of this format fleshed out better. What makes this format like difficult for both staff and players is how long it takes to prepare. And 3 pools is still huge, and it is the longest matches you could see. But I really actually like the set format. I think in terms of like I guess in a spectator sense, for like spectators and for people like post prep, I think this actually is a really unique and fun format. And it's just like a shame that the matches didn't really reflect the potential that this format has. I think maybe it needs a bit of fleshed out, maybe a lower requirement or less maps in the pool potentially. But outside of that, I think this format has like so much potential. It was so much fun to watch and kind of call a team to have won a set and there's still another set to go and whatnot. I really enjoyed this despite it not being super close. It was gutted not to see like any TBs, especially considering that there's a lot more chances to get TB. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And sure, I'll let you go first, Dio.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that made this iteration's format not work the way it was intended was the teams of 6. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have teams of 8, like here's the thing: it's single elim, so any FF is really really impactful, as we see with Titan Hollow. Like that was the team effectively that won last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And FF1 match, and they're out of the tournament. And they were in top 8, so quarterfinals. Usually you would still be guaranteed at least top 12. You'd have several weeks of losers bracket to go through, and you would still have a chance to actually play. But that's not the case because it's single elim. So being able to not forfeit because you're missing a few players is pretty important in a format like this when it is single elim. Second off, I think having the triple pools was kind of, and we also had like problems with FFs right in the group stages, right? There was the team that I was managing that had to FF because one of our members was like 3 minutes left in a tiebreaker when we were supposed to start the first match, and so we had to FF because he was missing for 3 minutes longer than he was able to be missing. And then one of the other teams that had a communication issue. So like the FFs in this format are a lot more impactful, and it seems like teams of 6 makes those far easier to happen than teams of 8 would have. And even then, clearly the teams of 6 and time zone stuff with scheduling didn't really change the super team ideas that people had, because like Le Fish is tri-continent, Titan Hollow is tri-continent. No Title, I think, is the only single country team left. Ramsing is still multi-continent. You have Flapinski is tri-continent. Also, like every team besides No Title left in the top 4 is multi-continent, either Europe plus Asia or tri-continent. So it didn't really impact the end result all that much, unfortunately. So it just ended up like making FFs, I think, more common than they probably needed to be. I think that's the biggest thing that changed how this iteration's format worked. I think if teams of 8 were kept, A, you have more room for specialists because you have 4 extra slots on the team instead of 2 extra slots on the team. And B, it's a lot easier to avoid forfeit matches. I'm not sure exactly what happened with the set format. I think probably there being 3 pools and the fact that there's kind of a concentration of all-rounders among the top 4 teams makes it so that it's much easier for one-sided matches to happen, if I had to guess. But honestly, I'm not super sure exactly what went on there, and I'm more so interested in looking at like teams of 8 versus teams of 6.
Yeah, I mean, I guess while we're on it, I guess I'll speak to the teams of 8 versus teams of 6. I mean, I do like the idea behind it, right? Because obviously, anybody who has played, 4v4 teams of 8 tournaments knows that trying to get 8 people together internationally to play at one time can be an absolute nightmare. But when you reduce it to 6 people, like Dio mentioned, you don't have quite as much of a spread. And then when you further introduce 3 pools, when you have 8 people, you can have various people in for certain maps, and but then when you reduce it to 6 people, that's a lot more people that have to practice a lot more maps, which is honestly, it's so exhausting. It is like, to me, it's tired enough practicing 1 map pool, having to practice 3 for the same tournament. I know I saw a couple of people mention just not doing a ton of practice, and that is kind of my biggest gripe with the 3 pool format, especially with the teams of 6. Makes it just so much harder to practice and kind of divide that up, because outside of these top few teams, especially where you have all 6 players that are really, really strong, when you have your kind of 1 or 2 carries that are playing most maps like so many teams do, all of a sudden they have to practice 3 pools worth of maps, and they have to be able to play every single one, and it is a lot harder to find the motivation to do that. The other thing with the stats that I mean, this is completely speculation, but I'm really curious if this did if this was a factor at all, is that the pools were a little bit smaller, right? And so, when you have these, normal size pools that are a little bit bigger, there tends to be a lot more specialty picks, a lot more options. And I feel like it tends to be those kind of specialty picks that the weaker teams sometimes look to find upsets. They can just grind out some of the gimmick maps, try and take a point there. Whereas now with these smaller pools, they're kind of more concentrated, and so you don't really have all those same options. And so the kind of stronger team has a lot less picks that they need to worry about, and as long as they're comfortable on those, there's very few I mean, I shouldn't say there's very few, but there's not quite as many super gimmicky maps or coin flip maps that they're not going to be as comfortable on because presumably they've taken the time to practice the main pool that they wanted to play.
Kind of agree, honestly. I mean, you giving me a bit of a bigger perspective is that the thing is, if you make the pools bigger, it's too much to prep. If you make the pools smaller, then there's gonna be if you keep the set that you got right now, it's one of those things where like one team sees like a potential meta they could play, but the rest of that pool is just not for them. Then you have one pool which is like all right, but nothing they can guarantee a win off of. And in the situation where the bottom 8 teams are going to have to deal with the top 4, who are way more well-rounded overall. It's like it's a lot tougher to deal with. So it has its positive and negative aspects, but in a scenario where the top 4 teams are just so much stronger, in my eyes, I don't really know what you could do with this. It has its
Yeah.
ups and downs, really, but I agree with your point. I think the pool might have been one of the big issues.
Okay, this is a question for anyone because I was dead the entire weekend. I assume the pools were kind of each base geared towards a certain skill set. Like typically you have like I don't know, aim is a pool, attack is a pool, is it that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
not quite?
it's not. It really okay. Look,
Not really.
it's not
Not
super
really.
strict, but I know that Half Slash mentioned earlier that it's not necessarily that it's strictly those, but it like leans a little more into it. Where I believe, if I remember correctly, pool A is control, pool B is mechanics, and pool C is balanced off the two. But
Oh, okay.
it's very like a little bit. It really isn't that drastic. You don't see it very often. There's only like a few extra maps that you could tell it is the case. Like having the DT2 and the normal 3 for B kind of hints a little more towards that mechanics stuff. But like outside of that, like it's nothing too drastic. You can see like a tiny bit, but it's nothing massive, to be honest.
Aaron, you look like you're deep in thought.
Yeah.
Well,
Share some knowledge with us.
I'm in like an awkward position in this discussion. I feel as like the sole representative of like head staff and organizational members
That's true.
of this tournament in this
Fair enough.
discussion, and so what I can say is this. There was not necessarily a consensus on this format, and there is not a consensus on it other than that obviously things will have to change going forward.
Yeah.
There's things in discussion for the future, and we'll leave it at that because obviously such discussions will take place at the time when they take place. But like as someone who values like competitive tournaments, I was really disappointed by this weekend, obviously, as I think most others were. And regardless of the reason, it was definitely disheartening. And it's really disappointing as well to see so many people saying like, "Oh, we just fucking didn't practice the pool." Like, "Oh, we just
Yeah, that
didn't care."
sucks.
We had to go through all these matches just to get to a match against the top seed, and so we just didn't care and we lost 4-0, 4-0. Like, it's really disappointing to see it come down to that. And whatever the cause may be, it's obviously something that led to a pretty unsatisfactory weekend.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I think the format itself like led to its own demise a little bit because people had to do qualifiers, then they had to do groups, then they had to do runoff, and then now they have to do best of 3 sets with tri-pool, which nobody's really done other than Drenched, CPMC, Iron Bag, Cobalt Bag are like the 4 tournaments I can think of, and they're all run by the same fucking person, by the way, who's the only person in the world who. Well, anyway, they're all run by the same person. So with 3v3 option of teams of 6 and no, Corsace will never be a
No.
3v3 tournament. This is a
Yeah.
4v4 tournament. It's the 4v4
Always.
tournament.
Pretty much.
Anyway, so going into this tri-pool sets thing, well, then those tournaments didn't do sets. Those tournaments did tri-pools. They didn't do sets. But like going into, oh hey, let's have another format here. I think people were just immediately like, okay, now we have to figure out how to practice and strategize for tri-pool best of 7, best of 3, best of 7 sets format. And it's just like, hey, let's toss more things at the players for them to have to deal with, which I have always thought ever since like 2018 that the concept of like set-based play and map drafting was kind of cool on paper, but it has obviously, the proof of concept is simply not there. Every time it's been run, people have had their issues with it, and there are obvious problems that have arisen like every time we've run one of these tournaments. Whether it's the size not scaling well, or the drafts taking too long, or the tri-pools being unpracticable to a lot of teams, even though it's only like 8 extra maps or something. It's not really that many because they're smaller pools and they only have one tiebreaker. So it's not like you're really getting that. It's not like you're getting 60 maps instead of 20. You're getting like 30 maps instead of 20, but whatever. But I think it was just like the format was its own undoing in this particular case, because the bottom seeded teams just like normally, right? If you have a normal best of in a normal pool, it's like, okay, we can practice this and find a couple maps to win on. And in this case, it was like, nah, fuck this, see ya.
I think
Yeah.
to me, I have one other thing to say about the format generally. I think for these pools, for the opposite reason that iFlame was talking about, but the same mechanic, it ends up favoring the higher seeded teams. Like Corsace, and Half Slash has talked about this multiple times. He and I kind of disagree on, like, we both think the pooling meta is bad, but we disagree on the way to make it better. He has gone with a lot of really aim control heavy stuff, generally control heavy pools. And I think those types of maps inherently favor teams that are really, really strong all-rounders in tournament in general, which is a good thing for ensuring that the best team gets through.
But it's not a good thing for competition.
Right. It can be a bad
anything
thing
until like
entertaining
finals.
Matches.
Yeah,
it can be a bad thing for entertaining matches.
Yeah, it gets you a lot of like 5-0, 6-0 in the first 4 weeks of the tournament until the best teams are actually playing each other.
Because like historically, when you have low seed, like 1 versus 32 in round of 32, what is seed 32 picking? They're picking Nomad 1, DT 1, Hard Rock 1, Fremod 1, Hidden 1, Nomad 2.
Just ask Israel. Just ask Israel against the United States, bro.
They're picking.
You just pick the easiest, most straightforward. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
there wasn't that option.
Yeah, those don't exist. Those don't exist in these pools. And so for seed 16 versus seed 1 in knockout round 1, if you play through these pools and you see 0 maps of that type, like there's a couple of them here and there, but they're scattered throughout the pools instead of all in one pool where you can realistically pick them all back to back to back and actually take points and win a match. So I don't think that's the only thing. I don't think that the way that Half Slashed pools is necessarily bad. What I think is that it was compounded with other things that we've already talked about to either decrease motivation or make the matches feel less competitive to the players going into them, which then makes it like not as good to watch and leads to a bunch of 2-0s. Hindsight is 2020, obviously. And again, he and I kind of disagree as a rule of thumb on like what about the pooling meta is good versus bad, even though we both think it's bad at the moment. So I'm kind of biased in my response there.
And he is very opinionated and very obstinate about his beliefs. So
yeah. Did you have any other thoughts, Shiva? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think although there were very clear issues with the format, I think one thing we should still respect is the effort the mappers and the map poolers put in to make all these custom maps. And we should also appreciate that this is kind of an experimental thing, and that we may have failed, but at least we kind of gave it a shot. But it's probably the good thing to come out is that Corsace are very willing to just give an effort. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It is what it is. We should still appreciate the effort that the mappers and the poolers put in, and people who are watching, if you haven't had the chance to, download the map pack and give the maps a try. They're a ton of fun, and the maps deserve recognition for the effort that they put into these. Because I know this was a bit of an unfortunate format where we didn't get to see maps played as much. So please do take a look at the maps and give them a try, because they are a lot of fun. I've had the joy of giving lots of them a try, and they're definitely worth it. So do that in honor of the mappers who made these.
It's an experimental format, and things are obviously going to go both wrong and right. Even before this year, like when Perennial ended last year, and I thought I was still going to do a Perennial 2023, I came up with effectively almost the exact same format independently as Corsace head staff, and then we all had a voice call, and they brought me in and said, "Hey, how does this look?" I'm like, "Hey, that's my idea."
That's what I was going to do.
It's League of Legends World Championships, by the way.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, this is literally League of Legends World Championships.
Yeah.
Also, just quick shout outs to group stage this year, because if there was one thing that I think went really well, it's that taking 3 teams out of groups makes for really fun and exciting and high drama, high stakes group stage matches. That was really cool. The downside is that it ended up with like some of the other problems that came down the pipeline from there, but the group stage itself was awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
other than the like 1 or 2 unfortunate incidents.
Yeah, big ups there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly the last thing I wanted to say as well, right? Is in hindsight, obviously there were a lot of things that didn't go well with the format. But I think, going into the tournament, there are a lot of ideas that were good in theory. And just, there's a lot of, I mean, there was like clear direction behind each of the ideas, things they were trying to solve. And even though it didn't work out, I really like that we are seeing experimentation. Because I think most people would agree that maybe this is not the format, but it is good to have some change, right? Like I think if you don't have that change, tournaments, I mean, especially 4v4 tournaments, get very, very, very stale. So personally, I'm a huge fan of experimentation. Even if it doesn't work out, someone has to do it. I mean, for example, I'm a huge fan of how Dota has been doing pools. Pretty much getting rid of slot pooling, which is, pools are a little bit controversial, but they make for some very exciting matches.
Everybody loves USC pools.
Everybody loves you. Listen, we should bring those to Corsace. Maybe 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, when every tournament is qualifiers into round of 32, and the only thing that's different about them is the map pools, it does get pretty boring, right? So.
I mean, the biggest complaint that led to Corsace making this change is that so many people were complaining about tournaments being stale and too long. I mean, that's the biggest. That was the biggest issue that everybody had. It was all the same thing. So it's cool that we tried something different, even if it failed.
No, exactly. So really, all that to say, I'm really glad they are experimenting. Obviously, things are going to need to change for next year, but I'm sure they will get some things differently. And I think that's really all we have to say on the tournament format. I think we spent plenty of time on that, so we can finally get to the predictions. We have 3 of them. So let us start with our first match, and that is going to be Flipinski versus Ramsing. Of course, Flipinski, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the teams, is Enri, Taquito, Interkiming, Malice, Nineric, Nos, versus Ramsing. That is the Welter, Squirrel, Gamer, Raf, GPL, Vesperid, and Common team. So I'll send it over to Dio to start.
I get to start. Okay, I was muted. I'm pulling up the teams real quick. Hold on. I do have my thoughts.
It's speechless.
I mean,
oh no.
I mean, so just to start, right? Ramsing, of course, is the team that got through on forfeit versus Titan Hollow, and I think a lot of people expected Flipinski and Titan Hollow to be the 2 best teams in the tournament. So with that said, coming into the match, I think the expectations are very much for Flipinski to win this in convincing fashion. And I don't think that's because Ramsing is bad. I think that's because Flipinski is really good. We've only seen 1 match out of both of these teams so far, which makes it a little bit harder to predict just based off of scores, because there's not a lot of actual scores to go off from both of these teams. I'm gonna go mostly off of vibes here because again, there's not.
Yo,
Vibe
vibe check. Yo, vibe check.
Vibes, okay.
I am vibe checking the teams right now because I did not have time to pull up the MP links, and I don't even know if there's much overlap with the scores whatsoever.
I mean,
Flipinski is basically top class in pretty much everything outside of like hard rock. I think hard rock is the one thing that they are kind of weak on. And I think Ramsing is a team that is well suited to capitalize on that. They have players like Welter and Gamer and Skrull and Raf GPO, who are all really good hard rock players. They have a lot of good nomad consistency players as well. So I do think that they're well poised to take advantage of that. The problem is that this pool has 2 hard rocks. And there are no restrictions on double bans.
I was just looking that up. I'm like, wait a minute. Was this an oversight?
I mean, they have
if that was an oversight or intentional, but theoretically, Flipinski can just double ban hard rock, and suddenly mod advantage gone for Ramsing.
I don't know if they're even that bad at hard rock.
I mean, there's free mod, but
yes, there is free mod, which you can take hidden on and go no mod.
Which you can take hidden on. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm trying my very best to sugarcoat this because that no double ban rule plus there only being 2 hard rocks and 2 hiddens is
hey, there's the protect, okay? There's the protect.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's true. If we're really going this direction, Ramsing could just protect a hard rock.
Okay, so 7-1 then? Because, like,
yeah, what's the like good ending here if you're Ramsing? Like, what's your good ending point total if you're Ramsing?
Okay.
Look,
I think
if you
let me
7-3. Win a hard rock and win 2 free mods. That's the most I can see from this team. Maybe a jump aim map that they could win, but that's I don't know. I think it's 7-3.
All right, here's the good ending. The good ending is Neneric misaims on speed, and because of that, they are able to win speed picks also, and so they get the DT1, the DT2, the DT3. I don't think the Nomad 5 was actually a speed map. No, it was not. So they get those. They get one of the hard rocks. What else am I giving them? Nomad 1 is pretty similar to a DT1, except it's just lower approach rate. Let's give them the Nomad 1.
Give them
I think that's also winnable.
I think they're going to need it.
Malashevsky uninstalls the game in a fit of rage.
Listen, three players won't show up, right?
Yeah. Let's put that scenario as well, 2-1G. Malashevsky, the most motivated tournament player, just completely quits. You know what? I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, I'm done.
I don't know. I think that there are a lot of good maps for this team. The problem is that I also think that most of those good maps for this team are also pretty good for Flipinski outside of like the hard rock pool. Like just comparing. Okay, here's Welter just played Malashevsky and Henry in Taishi Appreciation Team Hybrid Cup in Grand Finals.
That's still going on?
No. It was like a couple weeks ago. It was
all right. I was like, what the hell? Dude?
No. It's been over for a little while. And he was very strong. He was matching them on multiple maps. But the problem is that even if he matched one of them, usually the other was still like several 100,000 score higher anyway. So despite them having really good players on this team, I think the caliber of player is just better for Flipinski. I can see them winning a lot of points on specifically the DT stuff if Neneric is kind of nervous on the day of and has shaky aim or something, or if there's some inconsistency from players like Nahus or intercamping on some of the speed maps. But Henry Malashevsky, I don't really expect there to be a lot of inconsistency from, and those are the two that you're going to have to match on most of these maps to have a shot at winning. So realistically, I'm saying like 7-1, 7-2. If I'm giving them extra room for doubt, I think that they could pull off like a 7-4, 7-5 on a good day if Flipinski have a bad day. But I don't know how they win this.
When was the last time you saw multiple players from this Flipinski team have a bad day, especially at the same time?
Exactly.
Like, it just doesn't happen very often, man.
Look, normally we do these one by one, but I feel like we all know what's going on with this match. So let me instead ask, does anybody have them? Is anyone actually predicting them to get more than 1 point?
I think they could get like
More than one is
max.
definitely doable.
I
They
think
clutch. They
yeah,
clutch
like
pretty
much. Sure, but if
2 to 3 is probably like I would say if I were setting a line, I would say the over under for points won for Ramsing is 2.5. If I were like trying to set an attractive line, if I were trying to set an accurate line, I'd probably say it was 1.5. But that is really boring. So
all right. Well, so what's your prediction then? 2 and G. If the line
7-2. I'd
okay,
take the
7-2.
under. I'd take the under
Alright.
there, but I could see it hitting the over at 3.
All right, Shiba, 7-1, 7-2.
I've always been known to give teams a little extra hope than usual because I like to try and see the best in every team. So I'm gonna
There
say
you go.
Ramsing slap them on a hard rock, and then
Oof.
clutch two free mods. So I'm gonna say 7-3 for
Yep.
Lipinski.
I mean, the slap will be so hard that Popinski will
So
just
hard.
crumble under
Yeah.
the pressure,
Malashevsky
and
and
they will
Camping will
forfeit
both
on the spot.
uninstall.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have to be the opposite of Shiba. I'm just gonna say 7-0.
Yeah, I mean,
Entirely
there's
possible.
definitely a non-zero chance that this goes 7-0. Like that's definitely on the table.
Yeah. Hopefully, nobody on Ramsey is watching. If so,
Their team manager, in fact, in the chat right now,
Oh,
chatting it
no.
up.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying it's
I'm a
doable. I'm
believer.
not saying it will happen.
Believers,
okay.
believers rise up.
Shiva is their favorite commentator now.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Sorry, expired.
Deservedly so. But let's move on to the next match. This one is I'm personally expecting this one to actually be really good match, very close. No title.
I'm so confused. Go on.
Okay. I was gonna say no title versus Fish, but the rosters are on screen. You go ahead. I want to hear it.
All right. Le Fish opted into 7 UTC for this match. They are literally inting themselves. They have
Wait
a
a
player
minute.
from Africa. They have 4 players from the United States. What? Well, actually, 3 of them are from the
It's only
West Coast, so
Rectagon.
it's only
It's only
midnight there.
Rectagon.
It's only
Yeah.
Rectagon. But like these dudes opted into 7 UTC. I swear to God, they're inting themselves, dude. I swear to God,
Yeah.
they're inting themselves. I don't know if this match goes like long at all. It's not a good scene.
Bro, No Title have opted in to play 14 and 16 UTC. They're playing at 1 and 3 a.m. I don't think
No
it's
title
that.
plays.
No Title is
they
the
do
other.
play either 14 or
If
16.
okay, if they win this match or if they lose, regardless of who they face,
Oh,
they're
you're
going to be
right.
playing.
Yeah,
They're going to be
yeah.
playing at absolute brain dead
Okay.
times as well. So I think if they're the ones who make the choice, I'm sure they're ready to play with their full roster, especially considering this is a good matchup.
Rectagon 3 a.m., bro. I don't know. I guess he's just the
can
ultimate
do
gamer.
it.
Whatever.
It'll be
He's just the
fine.
ultimate gamer, I guess. I don't know. I'm just getting too old for this stuff. I'm like midnight.
Huh.
Fuck that.
T1,
I can't
you
play a match
forget,
at
you forget,
midnight.
you forget that this is Corsace Open, literal Champions League of Osu, bro. They're gonna be willing to slam their sleep schedule a tiny bit if that means they get odds at grand
Oh
finals.
yeah.
That being said, this match should be really good. Like,
Yeah.
Both these teams looked very good last weekend, and they have both looked
good.
historically very good with most of these players on various and sundry rosters. Flying Tuna is in Bulgaria.
Yes.
She's playing this.
Yes.
What time? What's their time zone? Is it plus
That's
3
plus
or?
3.
It's gonna
Okay,
be
that's actually not too
at
bad.
like 10
then.
in the
That's 10
morning,
a.m. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
This is
Yeah.
super close.
Yeah. Now you have to give us a prediction. It's not easy.
I didn't say I wanted to be the first to predict. I just wanted to talk about the 7 UTC thing.
Well, I don't care.
You're the first one to predict now. Yeah, you're on the. This is all
You're on
you.
the train tracks.
All
bro.
right.
this
All
for
right.
yourself.
Well,
Do it now.
For my money right now, Rectagon is the best player remaining in the individual player remaining in the tournament.
In the whole tournament.
Or top two player remaining in the tournament. Top 2 player remaining in the tournament. Sorry.
Bold.
That goes a long way, but I don't know. A part of me wants to just think that No Title wins this, but it's like 7-5 or literally like tiebreaker.
All right.
I don't know. I'm gonna make the bold claim and say No Title wins this, but it's like literally as close as a match can get. Like they win this on tiebreaker or something because South Korea plot armor.
Well, I mean, Yeah, it's going to be a close one either way. These teams did not play a lot of maps in common, which makes it infinitely harder to predict. I love my stats, and there are not a lot of them to go off of, unfortunately. But the one map, sorry, that they did play, there was a 16,000 point difference or 14,000 point difference
Of
between
course
the
there
two of
was.
them. Just to show you how close these two teams are on that one map specifically. I think I tough to say. I think part of it is going to be depending on the pool, right? Like you look at no title, this is like an absurd aim control team. And like Dio has mentioned earlier, um, Half Slash does tend to have more aim control, more just general control throughout the pools. You don't have those kind of easier maps. But of course, LaFish also has very good aim control players, but Tuna, worst HR player, Karcher. I feel like that is just such an insane aim control roster for all of the flow aim, all of the alt picks. And so I think because the pools in Corsace do tend to be a little bit more aim control, I think I would give the edge to no title, but I'm gonna say tiebreaker for sure. And I could easily see it going the other way.
During OWC predictions last year, I gave South Korea 5th, 6th as a tier. After no title in the previous Corsace Open made top 4 without Flying Tuna, with Zason in worse shape than he currently is, and with less development on the other members of the roster. So it was effectively just Flying Tuna worst HR player, or Karcher worst HR player. I don't even remember if worst HR player was on that squad. I think it was just Karcher.
It wasn't. Yeah, no, it was just Karcher and
Yeah.
the Dyson, Eligrisimo, Spectre, all those players, but no worst HR.
Yeah. So with Flying Tuna back, with worst HR player on the squad, with Zyson being way better than before, despite the strength of roster from the Fish, I'm gonna give it to no title, and I think it's probably pretty convincing, like a 7-3, 7-4 type of match. I don't think it's as one-sided as Flipinski, but I think it's a pretty convincing match from them. And A, partially because of the aim control, B, partially because they got the heart of the cards, they got that dog in them, whatever you want to say. This is South Korea OWC, effectively. Everybody was watching OWC last year, right, guys? We all saw exactly what was going on in OWC last year. Every time we predicted them to lose, they kept beating teams on tiebreak. They just kept winning. They beat USA in, what was it, semifinals?
Semis
on tiebreaker in OWC. They were the first team to beat USA OWC at all ever in multiple years before that.
Since 2019,
right?
17.
2017?
Because 2000.
I thought there was
every
2019. Or no.
Well, there might have been.
No, 20 might have been 2018. Long time, 5-6 years.
2018 went to a bracket reset, but they didn't actually get knocked down to losers. From the main bracket,
right.
They lost the first set of the grand final. But yeah. Depends on how you're looking at it. That was the last match they lost, but 2017 was last time.
Any match.
Yeah.
So first match loss since 2018 at all, dealt by effectively this roster.
And this LaFish roster is
pretty
not
goddamn good.
And this LaFish roster is not as good as 2022 USA OWC was by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but listen. Okay, This is my last comment on the OWC thing. South Korea get a tiny upgrade. USA gets a fucking ginormous downgrade. Dude, you still have Rexagon and you still have players like Decaden, but you are missing 2 of your best tournament players, including your captain of 3. How many years? 3 years at the time, maybe more than that. I'm this year, man. South Korea, That's
Okay,
an out, bro. Anyway,
hold on.
moving on.
Before we get the Shiba prediction, okay, I don't think you can say it's a small upgrade for South Korea. You know, Flying Tuna before he went on military leave, I'm pretty sure was MVP of the tournament or Veteran of
He
the
was
Year,
the
or something
best
like
that they
that.
had
Like
every year.
Yes,
he's
Flying
this
Tuna
guy
was
is
unbelievable.
staying
It was
at
the Tuna
tournaments.
Corona
Like,
duo every year. Like,
yeah, the fact that this team got fourth last year and now have worst HR player and Flying Tuna, that is an absurd upgrade. But
yeah,
sorry.
for no title.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Go ahead, Shiva.
I thought you were gonna downplay him for a second, and
No,
okay. You know what. I'm glad because I know that Flying Tuna still needs a bit of time to like de-rust and
of
kind of
course.
readjust
Yeah.
himself, but he is a phenomenal player, and I hope he does really well. I'm rooting for my boy. But if I was to give, do you have you given your prediction, dear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically,
It's
yeah.
like
I said like 7-3,
convincing-ish.
7-4, despite the fact that Boshyman is in the voice call with us right now. Sorry,
Yeah.
Boshi.
Sorry, Boshi.
Listen. Boshi, you're very chill like that, but I have to give my honest prediction. I think no title are a little bit more dominant than I think people think. I'm gonna call them to win 7-3. I think Rectagon effect is still very there, and on top of that, you do have people who can counteract no title on certain skills. You know, for example, you've got Chocomin, you've got Shige and Boshi to counteract with them on the gimmicky stuff and the reading stuff, but it's still not that crazy. You still have some good players there. But I won't speak any more about Lefish because I'm just big Zuba and I don't know much about them. So yeah. Sorry, Boshi, much love,
Very
but
relatable.
I think no title take this 7-3, and that's my prediction.
Man, did any of you guys have anything to add about the team? No.
I think
All
you said
right.
it
I mean,
all.
that's it for our predictions. We've now got the one and only Boshi Man joining us for an interview.
After we just shat on his team. Sorry, Boshi.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So,
Hey guys.
I mean, I have to say, of course, you know, go follow Boshyman on Twitch, on Twitter,
Wait.
on YouTube. It's yeah. What's up?
Wait, what about the what
About the third place and
what
championship
about the
predictions?
Oh,
again?
you're
finals?
so right. What am I doing?
I was like,
It's okay.
Guys?
Boshi brother, I'm sorry, you have to wait a
Okay.
second. Stop.
It's okay. Boshi can do this prediction too if he wants. It's ruined at this point. All right, we do have one more prediction.
To be in this.
So the last prediction we have is based on our predictions, we assumed Flipinski and No Title would win their matches. Of course, we're going off the majority. T1D should go for LaFish, but predictions. Let's say Flipinski versus No Title. We'll make it quick because I feel bad now. So sorry, Shiba. Flipinski, No Title. What is it?
I have friends on both of these teams, so I love both
Oh.
teams. But what sucks
Who's
is
the
I
better
do
friend?
have to
Yep.
pick. I have to pick one to win purely objectively, and I can't lie to you. This is this is a very close matchup. I think no title actually have pretty good odds of putting up an insane fight, if not winning. But granted, Flipinski is still a crazy team, and with that, I'm sorry, I have to put Flipinski winning, but I'm going to make it very close because this is my unironically prediction where I genuinely think that no title are going to put up like a crazy fight. I think Flipinski are going to take it either 7-5 or take the tiebreaker 7-6. Yeah.
All right. Let's go let's go clockwise. T1G.
Flipinski like 7-5 or something. 7-5, 7-4.
All right.
I can't bet against that roster. Like the players on that team, like that's where the South Korea plot armor runs out. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yo.
Malashevsky plot armor is too strong.
Yeah, no, I looked through a bunch of matches in their MP link, and I think this is pretty doable for no title. I'm not gonna lie. Like on paper, you kind of expect speed to be a Flipinski thing. No title actually beat them on speed in the last round. I think everyone's really hyper focused on worst HR player Karcher Flying Tuna and are kind of downplaying the effect that Zayson has had on this roster. And I think that the extra player in Zayson is going to be enough for them to win the tournament. So I'm going to go no title, and I think it's going to be very close because Flipinski was the projected winner effectively from the start of the tournament. But if I got South Korea winning OWC, by God, I got no title winning Corsace. I'm gonna go like 7-6, no title. That's my
Okay.
prediction.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Dio said, you do focus a lot on the top three of that team just because they're so insanely good. But everybody else on that team who kind of fill those more supportive fill slots are insanely good as well, which is why they do so well. There's so much depth to this team. Sison obviously can play so many maps, but I think I'm going to have to go with Shiba and T1G. I'm gonna say 7-4 to no title, I think. Of course, Malashevsky, still the best tournament player right now. Henry has,
I think you just
if
predicted
Henry,
no title on X.
uh,
You said 7-4 no title. I think you meant
Fl-
7-4 Flipinski.
yes,
7-4
I did.
Flipinski?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
For Flinsky. But yeah, Henry has
Flopinski will
been
not flop.
absolutely going off.
Look, what I want is different to what I
Yeah.
think. What I absolutely want
Yeah.
is a duel to the bitter end. I want these guys to
That would be
fight like
great.
anime protagonists. But if I was to give my objective prediction, yeah, that's it. But
All
I want this to
right.
be close.
Guys, I'm not forgetting anything else, am I?
I don't think
Third place match?
third place
Okay.
match.
Third place match.
Okay, easy,
Oh,
easy peasy.
I hate it here.
LaFish.
LaFish.
LaFish,
I'm gonna go with
LaFish.
LaFish.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
LaFish it is.
Ramsing.
LaFish
sorry,
like
Ramsing.
7-4, 7-5. I think it's closer.
I'm
but
going
not
7-2.
by much.
I'm
But
going
yeah.
7-1.
All right.
LaFish gets time zone gapped and loses. Oh.
Hey, they have 16
All right.
UTC. It's doable.
They're not going.
All right.
Doesn't
They're
it
not
depend
gonna,
on
they
which
don't
it
lose
gets
the badge.
played? I feel like it depends
Yeah.
on
No,
which
LaFish
depends.
is always 16. LaFish is
Yeah.
16. No titles 14. Or yeah, LaFish
I don't
is
even know.
16.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I know
Not
LaFish is
important.
16. I don't
So,
remember anything else.
Let's go with the links back up on the screen. We'll try this again. Welcome Boshi to the stream.
Hi, Boshi.
Hey, listen, we stopped
welcome
it a little bit,
It's
okay?
Vespirit!
But okay, we've got Boshyman cosplaying Vespirit. I mean, there's only one obvious first question. What do you have to say to the doubters here on the Full Circle podcast?
Okay, well, I don't know if you guys saw, specifically for T1G. So I don't know if you know, but Rectagon is actually like he becomes like, I think no one really knows, but he becomes probably the best player by like a giant margin at 3 a.m. Like
Huh.
it's just not even fair how good he becomes past midnight. But then he unfortunately has to go to bed at 4 a.m. So it's I
Alright,
think
you guys-
that we have a very big advantage having this 7 UTC match actually.
Do not
Well,
play with
so
Rectagon
messed
at
up.
3 a.m.
I mean, you guys better win quickly then. Maybe
Yes,
if someone from the other team watches the podcast, they'll just stall it out, and then Rectium will have to go to bed, and that might just be it. But so let's rewind a bit. Last week, you me
They.
yes, they
Me.
indeed. Thank you guys for your help. No, I'm completely blanking. You guys had a match against the Roundtable HK. I mean, this is the same thing I kind of ask everyone because the format is so different. But how have you prepped differently? How have you kind of thought about matches differently with this new format, with the sets of 2 and the 3 different pools?
Yeah, so with this strange format. Okay, personally, like I don't really have a problem with the bigger kind of pools where you have to practice a bit more. I do know that a lot of players do have that problem. For us though, we kind of like we did like a little bit of practice. Like we played through the pool once to figure out like, okay, what are we gonna like actually really focus on to practice? Because usually there's like the relatively basic stuff that you can like play once and you're like, okay, I think I'll just play this fine and match. And then there were like the more specialty cases like the Nomad 4 and Pool 3 that were like, okay, this is kind of a memory map. So we kind of like just made rough like calls for what we should or shouldn't practice. Like, okay, I'll be honest, we didn't have a team sheet for that round.
Okay.
So
Didn't
so
need it,
we
clearly.
we went into the blue pants match first, which was I think that was on the same pool, right? Yeah. We
Yeah.
went into that match, and that's kind of like the match where we were like, we really kind of understood like what maps we would probably be good on or not good on. going into that Hong Kong match.
Yeah.
And okay, another thing is like I was so surprised at how a lot of the people did on in the match, like from both sides. Like I frankly didn't know how good Shige was gonna do on that Nomad 4. Um, I
That's a good score.
I was watching the VOD again, and you guys were like, Shige's not really known for the Nomad reading. And I was like, yeah, I agree.
What?
And then he
Wait, did we
like
say that?
one missed it. Someone said that. I don't remember who.
I remember saying he wasn't too known for speed. I don't remember saying reading. Did I say reading? Did I say reading?
Well,
No,
it was
it's
on the
okay.
reading map, so I would assume it's.
Yeah.
Oh God, I might have trolled. No,
It's okay. Not
I'm pretty
important.
sure I'm yeah, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was just like, I went into that thinking it was gonna be like me, FG Sky, Rectigon practiced that a little bit, and I didn't really know how good Shige was gonna be on it, and then he just dropped the equal score to mine, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, so that match was like kind of a little bit all over the place. Going into this next match though, like it's a bit more of a normal pool. I think we've made a team sheet and we're practicing
Oh,
a more substantial amount.
we'll have to hear the team sheet. You guys are actually going to be a little bit ready for the next match. Are you looking forward to going back to one pool, or is it all the same for you?
I think this pool I do kind of wish it was 3 hidden, 3 hard rock because that's like
Yeah,
I think that's a more normal pool size.
it is.
Um but that's about the only thing I would say that
Yeah.
kind of icked me with the pool a bit. Otherwise, oh, I did notice that like you were saying about the half slash pooling thing, like a lot of these are more
Mhm.
aim control-y, but I think we do have like FG Sky's kind of like really kind of regaining his skill a bit. We have Cookiesy and Rectigon, and I think we're gonna overall do pretty good on this pool, even though No Title has a pretty good strong roster with that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great match for sure. So I want to talk about improvement for a second. You've been playing tournaments since 2018, I believe, so 5 years now. You
Yes.
made last year's OWC roster, where you won OWC, and I feel like on that OWC roster, you're kind of more of a fill player for some of the aim precision picks. Now, especially in recent tournaments, like you look at USC, you've been taking on more of that kind of big carry performance where you're playing really just everything, being that kind of main carry on these teams. And there's just been kind of a very rapid improvement to me over the past year, especially. Have you been doing anything differently over the past year in terms of improvement, or is it just all kind of come together naturally?
I think I definitely have focused more on some kind of sleeper picks I didn't really think about as much. Um, like during OWC, I kind of really realized like specifically like Hard Rock 3, Hidden 3. I never really like pay that much attention to them, but in tournament, they're kind of the picks that like the other team kind of always got on me or like kind of surprised me with their performance, like Hidden Flow Aim or like Hard
Mm.
Rock Alt or something like that. So I kind of focused a bit more on these like more specialty things, but at the same time, it was kind of more of an all-roundedness thing. So I've been like not only trying to like improve overall mechanics, I've been trying to get into speed as much as I can.
Yeah.
But there's definitely way better speed players in the US. In fact, there's so many speed players in the US. But like having it at all is like better than not having it, especially with higher skill cap pools. The BPM probably is just going to be higher. So being able to just play more stuff than you couldn't before is good. But yeah, overall, I've just been trying to like broaden that skill set, cover more areas than I previously did before.
No, I mean, it definitely shows. I mean, especially, I mean, like you mentioned with the speed players, it's not every tournament that you're going to have four of those insane speed players. Sometimes you have to fill in. So, good to know. But as a kind of follow up to that, for me personally, I feel like there's kind of different levels of stress or different levels of effort that are required when you're kind of a fill player for your team, as opposed to when you're expected to be the carry and you have to practice, every single map and play just about everything. Do you have a preference between the two, or do you kind of notice a difference in stress level even?
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of more and less at the same time for both ways. So like
Okay.
OWC was kind of one of the first tournaments where I was more of a fill player rather than a carry player. Like before that, I was kind of I wouldn't say more under the radar, but like most of the teams I was on, I was usually more of a person in for every map except for speed. But during OWC, it was kind of just like, oh, I'm just playing like the reading and maybe like another hidden and the precision and the free mod or something like that. And
Yeah.
for me, it was kind of like more stress in a way because I was like, there was like so much pressure on me performing on solely those maps. So like every time I was going in for a map, I was like infinitely more like under pressure, like on top of like OWC
Yeah.
nerves as well. It kind of felt like I had to like perform or it was like the end of the world or something. Because like in my mind, like
Mhm.
sure, if I was like a or like a carry player on that team, I would have to perform every single map. But in a way, there's kind of like that thought in my mind that like, okay, if I don't perform now, I can perform later, or like vaguely that idea, like not exactly, but you kind of get what I mean, right?
To me, it also helps
Yeah,
with
yeah.
nerves a lot. Like when you're a carry player in for every single map, you get first map nerves out of the way, and then you have like 10 or 11 maps where you're
Yeah.
just kind of chilling in the lobby, just doing your thing. Um, and for me, because I'm not like even in my rank range, I'm not like a top class tournament player or anything, so I tend to place lower on those teams, but I have more fun because it's just less nerves and more just playing the game in those lobbies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that kind of similar for you on a lot of teams where you're kind of playing a lot of maps versus just on a couple of the first map nerves and stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna say like, especially like yeah, after the first map, you kind of the nerves get out of the way, and like, in a way that kind of gives you more adrenaline, and you're more in focus, and yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine that goes for most tournament players. Honestly, cannot relate though. We are nerds the whole way through. Um, but okay, moving on to a different subject. This question is for me. I noticed you've been playing some easy recently. And I love easy. I wish we could see more of it, but you don't really see easy much in tournaments. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on the easy mod, kind of as a whole. Current multiplier, I feel like is commonly 1.75 is the most common. And so with that multiplier, it's pretty rarely worth it to take easy unless the map is really, really hard on hidden or and hard rock. Uh, playing more easy, do you feel like 1.75 is a good multiplier and people are just not good enough at easy? Or do you feel like, a bit of a higher multiplier, like 2 or even farther would be reasonable for tournaments? Like
uh,
how do we see more easy?
okay, so I think easy should have a if it's like a thing for free mod in particular,
Yeah.
I think there should be a per map multiplier. There is no like
Oh,
there's no one way where you can say easy gets a multiplier set throughout the whole tournament, in my opinion, that makes it fair. Because there's gonna be maps like the anti-mod like CS5 AR8. And you could have maps like in 3WC, for example, there was this one KTG stir map. I think it's called like Imagination or something. It's got a red background. Um, and
yeah.
it was very hard rock, very hard rock precision aim, and then the hidden just was also kind of hard as well. And then easy made it basically like 2 stars if you can read it, and and if you're South Korea. Also, I want to say if OWC ever got easy, South Korea would be absolutely insane. Anyway, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No.
I think easy just it needs the per map multiplier. Like I've seen some tournaments in the past do that. Like a map with incredible density, like got like a 3.5 multiplier, or then in the case of like that imagination map, that would probably get like a maybe like a 1.2 multiplier or something.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, actually. I would love to see that implemented more. Maybe we would actually get to see more easies. Are you a supporter of the easy pool?
The easy pool, just like having an easy pool
Just
in
having an
tournament.
easy pool in tournaments.
Oh, that's I would absolutely love that.
There you
But
go.
I do know that, and that is hard
Eh,
though, because like
oh, it's
I
yeah.
I absolutely obviously I want to play easy in
Uh,
tournaments, but like
there you
for the
go.
overall tournament player base, kind of like forcing other players to learn easy or like force them to memorize, I guess, in a way. I mean, it depends on what the rest of the player base is really up to.
Yep.
Because I know a lot of people don't really find it that interesting or kind of like a chore. So
Well,
Depends.
I think
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
just to butt in a little bit, I think one interesting thing when talking about like introducing easy pools is the now prevalence of AR8 hidden, where it used to be a
Yeah.
pretty niche thing. Like reading players were always around, but not in the way that they are today, where you have like panic maps and Yolks Pie maps and a lot of really heavy overlapping reading intensive stuff. Like there used to be low AR, but it wasn't nearly as difficult
Not
as a
quite
lot of
like
low
this.
AR
Yeah.
picks are nowadays. And because it was included so often in tournaments started having to make it harder and harder and harder to match up with what the player base was actually good at. So even if the player base right now isn't super receptive to it, it might just be a case of if more of it ends up getting introduced, people will end up being better at it and being more receptive to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Aaron,
Realistic.
you've been around longer. What are your
This is
thoughts on
true. Yeah.
Wow, sorry, I
On
had
an
to tune
easy.
out a little bit because
Yeah.
apparently my mic was having issues. What am I being asked? I apologize.
Remember
What do you
when
think an
AR8 used to be
easy pool?
Boblo everywhere until everybody started doing AR8 in tournaments, and then we started getting like Yolks Pie maps and stuff? Similar thing happens if we introduce easy mod pool, yes or no?
I mean, do you remember a few years ago when like every tournament that allowed easy would have some sort of like P model, blah blah blah, CS5 AR8, and everyone would just run
Mhm.
easy on it. So like we're just going down that kind of pipeline where like that's the entry point, and then we just kind of go from there.
Yeah, probably.
Why not? Yeah.
Is that a bad
Uh,
thing? And would it be
I
popular? I guess is
I
kind of the question.
It
personally
would not be popular at all.
It would be so like here's the thing, right? It would
Not
be
at
like
first.
extraordinarily popular with about 6 people, and the entire rest of the world would go, "This is fucking stupid." Because I feel like people
yeah.
are really, really like it's easy is super polarizing whenever it comes up in discussions in tournaments because you have Yolks Pie and like Lulzep and like minus GN, and like Akoro, right? Like there's this very, very small subset of people who are like absurdly good at easy, and literally everybody else is like, nah, I'm never fucking playing that shit in my life.
Okay, wait.
And I don't
Question
think that
for-
putting
Go
an
ahead.
easy pool in would just be like, oh my god, now I'm going to learn easy. I think they would just be like, okay, I'm ignoring this pool.
You're breaking my heart. Go ahead.
I'm
Tio.
sorry. I'm just basing it on my
No,
experience talking
that's
to people about this.
understandable.
Yeah, you're right.
A question for Boshi: how much more accessible is easy DT compared to just easy? Because it is higher approach rate, technically.
I've heard it's like such a hard question because theoretically like it should technically be easier if the AR is higher, but the density is the same.
Yeah.
So it really
Yeah.
it depends on whether or not that's your problem. Because I know there's like players like just gonna call them out, like One Tabby and Comma. Their problem is more so, well, I'll say Comma in particular. Comma is like incredibly good at high density, like at like above AR9. Like what's that map? Ice Cream Princess Sweetie. He's so good at that map. He can like sight read that. But if you give him a map like AR8 that is just aim and there's like no overlaps, he will die.
Yeah.
So it's very dependent on whether or not you are good at the density or the approach rate. But I do think easy DT is easier overall. From what I've seen of other players that have tried to get into it, they play easy DT first. So I think probably.
Okay.
So to follow that up, can you confirm that you're going to be taking easy on Free Mod 4 this weekend?
I don't think you can in Corsace.
no,
right?
you can't in Corsace.
It's in the
Can't
hard
in
drive
Corsace.
only. Yeah.
Oh
This is
no.
Me to see too.
why are we even here?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Wait.
I've
Just
like
to suffer.
commentated this whole tournament without knowing this. So what am I doing?
Honestly,
How
I
am I?
flame.
Why am I here?
Honestly, I flame. Me neither. I didn't know this either. So it's fine.
Nobody's-
We can suffer
Nobody plays
together.
it. But look, you support the easy pool. You've won me over. I'm changing my prediction to 7-0 for
Against no title.
against no title. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Oh my god.
I think that's it for us, unless you guys had anything else.
I flame. I
Um,
flame with the
yeah.
guilt prediction change.
That's all I got.
Not even the guilt. I just respect the easy. But
Thoughts on
Boshi-
Oregon? Thoughts on Oregon's
Oregon?
performance in USC this year?
Oh, true.
I think we lost all of our speed players for some reason. Oregon, the only state with like the 3 speed players that only play solo.
That
You guys
happened.
got
We-
really
Dynamo
unlucky.
gonna-
You- They,
We
they
would have
get,
had Rye, we would have had Ninja Fish, and then they didn't play.
they get freaking Florida in the second round of winners, and then they get Maryland in the third round of losers. Like,
Yeah,
man,
I think our seating was awful.
that is just rough sledding.
I mean, yeah, that's how rank seating goes sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it for us. Bosh, was there anything else you had to add? Anything else you wanted to say to the viewers before we close out the episode?
I think that's about it. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get the socials up on the screen one more time before we end the episode, so everybody can go subscribe and follow Boshi. Huge thank you again. We appreciate the interview as always, and we will be back next week. I think we're going to have 2 episodes. One will be, of course, a Corsace Open general reflection. The other one, I think, will be a more mapping focused episode with Haslash. But before that, we've got a very exciting grand finals weekend coming up. Our first match is going to be 7 UTC Saturday with Boshi Lafish versus No Title. So stay tuned for that. Hope to see all of you guys back here at 7 UTC. Of course, thank you everyone for being on the show. Thank you guys all for watching, and we will see you, I guess, later tonight or tomorrow, depending on where you are.